and welcome to Adventures in Local Marketing from BrightLocal, the marketing podcast for marketers who want to do good local SEO. So in the upcoming episodes, I'll be chatting with a smorgasbord of marketers who each bring their unique insight into the local marketing landscape. And each episode is going to serve up a one-stop overview of our guest's chosen topic area. It's going to give you tips and tactics that you'll be able to dash off and implement right away, as well as offer insight that's going to get your brain cogs whirring. So I'm your host, I'm Claire Carlisle, and I'm BrightLocal's local search expert, as well as being a chartered marketer with 20 years experience of working with local businesses of all shapes and sizes. So today we're going to be chatting with my old friend, Aaron Weiche. So Aaron is the co-founder and CEO of Leadferno, which is a conversion platform that helps businesses delight customers at speed using business messaging. So before, he was the CEO of GatherUp, and he has founded and been in executive roles in multiple digital marketing agencies and software companies. So Aaron helped start MN Search, Local U, Local University, and he hosts the Conversion Cast podcast. And he speaks all over the world on local SEO, web design, reputation, and conversion. And he describes himself as someone that just likes to build things. So, hello Aaron, and welcome to the show.
Claire, thanks so much for having me.
It is my pleasure and our pleasure to have you here. So today we are going to be talking about the subject of conversion. We're going to talk about what it means, why it's important for all local businesses, as well as how you think that agencies could do a much better job of focusing on conversion. So we're going to start at the very beginning. I always like to start with a definition. So can you give us a quick overview of what you mean when you talk about conversion? Let's have like a top level description and some common examples.
Yeah, so for me, in its simplest form, conversion is getting your website visitor to take an action that is in line with a step in your lead and sales process. And so that step can be something very minimal, like subscribing to your monthly email newsletter, or it can be very major, like clicking to purchase or booking an appointment or a call or filling out a lead form. So depending upon the type of business you are, your process, things like that, that's going to maybe dictate the types of conversion that you offer on your website as you look to get people to. Basically, the goal is to get them to identify themselves so you can start to work your sales process, your lead process management in order to move them all the way through your funnel and turn them into a booked piece of business with you.
Do you think that a lot of businesses sort of might forget to identify their conversion events to start off with?
Absolutely. I think there's a number of things that are, I guess, almost fighting against conversion in some sense. On one side, there's many aspects of it that have not evolved as fast as so many other elements of the internet. To me, the fact that like a contact form, is still by far and away the number one conversion event for most businesses. And this has been the same for 2 decades now. So to me, that's one that kind of stands out is we've had so much evolution in so many other areas of digital marketing and the web and user experience and devices and everything else, but we're still anchored to almost an archaic piece of what was first developed that really hasn't moved forward in leaps and bounds. So I think that's one part of it. The second part is agencies, when you look at who you're working with, all of the sexiness and appeal is on top of funnel. So how can we drive more traffic and get more ad budget and social content and all of these other things, and all of the focus, all of the strategy, all of the budget goes to top of funnel, and bottom of funnel ends up with just very little left over, very few people caring about it, strategy, testing, all of those different things. So I think those are probably the two main kind of kryptonites of conversion that we see these days.
can we have a think about the different places that we need to be looking to manage the conversion events? So sort of between and across surfaces, where might, you talked about the web, but where might some of those conversions actually be taking place?
Obviously, your own website, that being the first place. But then you also consider all the interaction points that our customers have nowadays. Our Google Business profile. We have, depending upon your type of business, there might be a booking feature that you can take advantage of. There's obviously the call, there's directions, those are conversions. Google finally seems to have settled in on a messaging solution with Google Business Messages. The history of that, if you've followed it, has been many solutions in many different ways that have been thrust onto the scene, and then in Google fashion, the plug pulled on them and pulled back. But Business Messages has seen a couple of year, 2-year plus run now, and a lot more traction. So being able to chat or message right from that search result, right from their business profile as well. And then when you're on social channels, you have messaging tools, Facebook Messenger, direct message, WhatsApp channels. There's just so many different ways that almost all of these different platforms and places where they're trying to get friction and eyeballs and capture you are also offering communication channels and ways to connect between the consumer, prospect, and the business.
It's quite a lot, isn't it? Potentially, with like all of these different channels and all of these different surfaces, and all of these opportunities for conversion. Like the thought of trying to, be in all of those places. I'm wondering how scary that is for some businesses.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think no different when they look again at top at funnel and they're trying to figure out where to get exposure and visibility, ranking, views, followers, whatever that might be. It's that same kind of thing, right? It's super easy as a small business owner to feel the one more thing feeling. And that one more thing you feel like might be what topples you over. So the same when you start to look at a lot of these communication channels, when I talked earlier too about forms not evolving, I think that's some of it as well, where it's like, all right, we've had this contact form and we've had this lead process, and I don't want to change it, right? It's that fear of doing something different, even if it could be better, more efficient, lead to better results. A lot of times we just anchor to, well, this is how we've done it. This is what we know. It seems good enough. Those type scenarios, but always easy. I just look at in being a lifelong small business owner myself, it is so easy to feel overwhelmed.
And then you talk about SMBs there. I am thinking that when you're sort of thinking about this at scale, or whether it's because you're an agency that is offering some services like getting organic visibility for businesses, they're going to be just put off just because of the management of the processes, I guess. Too many touch points.
Yeah, a lot of it that I see the most is just how a business and their staff, whether it's one person or a 2-person team, or they have 5, 10, 15, 20, it is just that change management of one more thing for them to handle, how they have to tweak the process, their availability, right? So when you start talking about conversion opportunities that might be a little bit more real time, we can definitely talk about how that matters, speed to lead and how fast you reply. They start to get really nervous about, are we able to handle this? What are the things that we can do? And there's definitely some interesting things to pick apart where people have misconceptions to some point that are holding them back from testing, trying, improving in those areas.
Yeah. That's really interesting, especially with the messaging, because I work with a number of sort of small and medium-sized businesses, and looking at larger businesses, and this idea that you should turn messaging functionality on, and the panic that ensues with the idea that you should have messaging in Google Business Profile because this is going to convert amazingly for you, but the idea that they need to manage actual responses is a bit too much, I think, in many cases, which is a shame. And I'm sure we'll get onto that now. Just thinking about, do you think in terms of optimizing for conversion and with conversions themselves. Are there any things that are, easier sells than others when it comes to convincing businesses to take these on? I'm wondering if there are any sort of hidden gems that can be overlooked, but that can give, good returns very quickly or easily.
Yeah, boy, I would love to tell you that any of them are easy hidden gems, but also almost all of them come with having to have some amount of skin in the game, right? And one thing that I think is really important that we've already kind of touched on is the right way to be doing conversion is to be testing. And in this day and age where we have so many other tools like messaging, text messaging, things like that, these are the types of things you should be trying, because absolutely, I very rarely come across a website that does not have a contact form on it. So the contact form is there and exists, but that's very static and can be a very long loop time in responses and interaction and things like that. But massively, what we find is when you introduce real-time channels to people, that's a big win for your consumer, but the business is definitely worried about it, the cost it comes from them. But there are some smart decisions you can make inside of that can be easier on your staff. So one thing that I look at, and it's core to our product, is instead of using live chat, we use text messaging. So the benefits to that, and we've done a lot of research that shows this too, is when people enter a live chat, they expect a response within minutes. And so that does put a lot of pressure on the business to get back to them right away. Now, in that same survey, we found over 50%, the vast majority for text messaging, say, I want a same day reply. So with text messaging being asynchronous, it gives the business a much larger grace time to be able to communicate with that customer instead of, I need someone instantly available when they hit that chat bubble. And if I don't respond then, now they're already getting disappointed or frustrated. Or even worse, some of the things that happen, we all click a live chat and then it says, sorry, we're offline, there's no agent available. Our study showed that 57% of consumers leave the website when they enter a live chat that isn't live. So you have these leaky things in your conversion bucket and you have a very small window. And if a business can staff it the right way, live chat can be a great conversion tool for them. But if you already have challenges, you already have the one more thing, whatever else, then you absolutely should be looking at something that's easier to manage. Your people don't need a lot of training. You can put anyone on your team on a text message and let them respond because it's how they already communicate. And then the customer's expectations are just far greater. It can be a real-time channel, but you can also take 2 hours, 4 hours, or 6 hours during that day to respond, and the customer is not going to be disappointed or frustrated or already looking to other businesses.
I love that insight into consumer behavior and common customer expectation, because I think sometimes we lose sight of that, and all we need to do is reflect. Helpfully, we can reflect upon ourselves in our understanding of how, especially if we're talking about communicating with people that are similar to ourselves, i.e. they're human beings that are looking to buy something, then we can think about the best way and people's expectations, especially about time frame, which is another really interesting point that you had there. The point that sometimes we want that immediate answer, and sometimes it's just down to, I don't need the immediacy, but I need a channel that works for me, which isn't speaking on the phone. So I think sometimes we lose sight of those bits. What I would really like to do now is look at something that we always look at during the podcast, which is your pet peeve or your bugbear, what we call Room 404. So it's something, doesn't have to be completely related to this, in marketing that you would like to say goodbye to because it makes steam come out of your ears and makes you shout. So what would you like to pop in Room 404?
Claire, this is no problem for me at all. And I've written about this on our blog. I really think the new golden rule of business is being easy to work with. And I just lose my mind at how hard small businesses can make it to work with them. And a lot of that comes down to communication, but it spills over into other areas as well. I've often taken to my Twitter feed, I love businesses where I can pay via Apple Pay and I don't have to enter in my credit card information. The fact that I can do that with my lawn care company, I could do it with a dry cleaner, things like that. Like that is making that business easy to work with. And when we look at communication and conversion, and a business only has, here's the only way to start working with us, is this 20-question form where you have to tell us even more than we need because we're lazy and we don't want to ask these questions in our communication process to see if you're a good lead, that just ends up being ridiculous to me. So that's a one thing where I just always, really stress when I work directly with a business, like, have you tried to be your own customer? Do you know what it's like? Is it easy to get that communication? And to me, that's the stuff, that's what blows my mind, that I could go in all kinds of different directions where, yes, even if it makes it a little harder for you, the business, because you have to create new processes or improve at them or be better at them, you need to do that so your customer's process is as easy as possible. At the end of the day, that's what we're all seeking. Time is our biggest commodity. And all the time, small businesses think they can't revolutionize something. They look at the big things like, oh, here's what Uber did for transportation. Here's what Amazon did for e-commerce. Well, somewhere along those lines, those businesses made bets and said, we are going to make it easier for our customer to book a taxi, to get a ride, to make a purchase with confidence online, all of those things, and you figure out what that is. And small businesses can absolutely do this. They can be easier to work with. So that's my pet peeve that we could go in a million directions with, and we all work with them all day long. So like I easily have a list of businesses that are hard to work with and those experiences, and it is so great when I hit the ones that are. Those are ones that are going to get my repeat business. Those are ones I'm going to write a review for. Those are ones I'm going to refer to other people.
Okay, all right, goodbye businesses that don't want to think carefully about how people want to be communicated with. We'll say goodbye to them, we'll pop them in room 404, it's done. Your life will be so much easier now, okay.
But there's a lot of businesses leaving the face of the earth with that.
Okay, they've just gone. I mean, you've only got 3 to choose now, fair play.
Yeah,
so
totally.
it will make stuff so much easier for you, okay. So,
there you go.
Okay, room 404 aside, let's have a think about... in particular, how agencies work with their clients. In your experience, how they go about identifying conversion events and those related metrics, do you think that there is enough of a focus on that, agencies in general, or do you think some sort of types of agencies and niches are much more focused on helping the businesses that they work with perform, or is it just everyone's bad at it?
I think the really good agencies have some focus on it, right? And these are ones that in their reporting, they're reporting on leads, right? And they're reporting on conversions more than they're reporting on page views and ranking and all of those kinds of things. So if that isn't the focus of your monthly reporting or however you're doing reporting with your clients, that's already showing me that like it's absolutely not enough, because at the end of the day, that's all that you're trying to do. And there's a couple little things in here that I think are really important to point out. One, conversion and leads is what the business wants, right? They want to drive revenue and dollars. But what most agencies fail to see is the right conversion data will actually show you is your targeting actually on point. And they fail to see that in that they look at conversion as a separate thing, because we've even had people when using Leadferno say, oh, yeah, well, this is great. I'm getting this action, but I'm not getting the right kind of leads, or this is what's going on with it. And my reply to that is, great. That lets you know that your targeting is amiss a little bit, one way or another. And that's a great way for agencies to use that internally. Are we bringing the right type of traffic? Not just quantity. Are we bringing quality to the table of what's there? Then after that is just looking, when you get serious about conversion, then you start to look at all of these little things, right? It'll blow my mind on stuff where someone will be working with an agency and they're hell-bent on site speed for the website. They want to get them from an 80-something into the 90s and have green on the Google page speed test so they can show them that. But then something as small as their contact form, that main conversion method they have, that submitting that form doesn't even have an auto reply saying, hey, we received your form and we are going to follow up with you and this is what it looks like. We are just, we'll see how it times with releasing this podcast, Claire, but we are releasing some studies we did in looking at hundreds of contact forms, and it's a single-digit percentage of contact forms that have an auto reply. This is something that requires nothing but the marketer or the business building that in and just saying, hey, we've got your interest. We are going to follow up with you. Your request did not go out into the universe for no one to field it. So something as simple as that would take someone, depending upon the form tool, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to have set up and do correctly. 90+% are not doing this. And that to me just shows how little is the agency even filling out the form, and they're only filling it out to make sure that it registers in Google as a conversion in Google Analytics or whatever else. So there's a couple of examples there where not doing enough, not putting enough focus on it.
Thinking about GBP metrics and the new API and all the changes and all of those types of things, can you see anything happening on the horizon with regard to any new, I don't know, what do you know, if you put your crystal ball and if you're going to make some predictions, do you think that there will be any changes in GBP with regard to conversion events or new stuff that you think that you could see being added or that you'd like to see added?
Yeah, I would definitely bet on things gaining ground there, just as we've seen in the history of Google. They want to be more of both a destination and the transaction. So the more that they can get their hands on that and control that, they definitely want to. If you look at the overall thought process behind, Google Places, Google Plus Local, Google My Business, Google Business Profile, all the names, all the features, all the presentation of it. To me, the underlying thing is Google's always felt we will organize and present the information of businesses better than businesses will do it themselves. And when you look at that, and as they've matured in some of those things and gained some steadiness with certain aspects of it, for them to test what they can capture and create those opportunities and be closer to sales, I think they absolutely want to. And when you're the size company they are too, you're always looking at, where can we pull off some more revenue? And those become paid for features, or you lose a percentage, you pay a percentage to them. So it would be hard not to think they're not going to trend that way.
Yeah. Do you see, I'm thinking of stuff that is currently because there is a free version of messages or the messaging platform. There's a paid for version, isn't there, for when you're using GBP messaging, is that right?
I don't know about the paid for. You definitely have the next level up, with what we work with, where you can integrate it into our tool. Yes. So you end up using a provider that has a bunch of other tools, right? So when you use us or a similar solution to Leadferno, you get things like auto replies, you have saved message templates, multiple people can respond or pass the conversation to each other. So by using another vendor or a provider that it's tied into, you gain all their feature set, but you are paying that vendor instead of and then they have, just because these two tools, even though they're basically the same thing, they're segmented. There's other things like visibility of it showing on desktop results instead of just mobile results and things like that. We'll see if those two catch up, if the solutions merge. It's just one of those things with Google where the same product somehow ends up siloed in two different areas between local team and other teams, and you just got to figure it out.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? Sometimes, in my experience, a business can be looking at their competitors or big players in their niche or their niche, depending on where you're listening from, and they can be thinking, well, how do I get that, or how can I have that functionality in my Google business profile? And a lot of the time it's to do with integration with third-party providers in my experience, like bookings and all of those things. So it's not always easy to understand all of the different conversion opportunities that can exist for you.
Businesses and their in-house marketing team or the digital marketers they work with, they really need to dive in, expanding how they look at things. And to me, Google Messages is an example of this, and an area I think is completely underserved, and one we're trying to serve is that engagement side. How do you make it as easy as possible for a consumer to ask questions of the business? So when they present these conversion options, right? I look at conversion in like 3 simplistic layers. You have action, so that means I might follow you on a social, I might subscribe to your newsletter. I'm doing something, but I don't have to say who I am, and I can just kind of follow along or take in or get used to your brand or build trust in you. Then the next layer is interaction. And so this might be filling out a form, asking a question, but I'm identifying myself and starting an engagement with that business. And then the very last one is transaction. And that's where we're actually booking, buying, doing something like that. So what we see a lot of businesses rush to is that transaction, right? Their website, I have my nice little icons. You can follow us on social. I can sign up for your email newsletter, even though you're not telling me any benefits I would get by doing these things or what I'm going to see. We just want to put the icons on there. And then we have all the way the other end, like, hey, here's our estimate form, or here's our, our buy form, or whatever else. We offer that. But that middle ground of just saying, tell us who you are, ask your questions. We will easily answer them. We will get you help. You can talk to an expert. We don't do enough as far as our CTAs and channels that we're offering there. And just saying like, yeah, we will build trust with you. We will answer a couple initial questions to get you across the finish line. No different than if a human walked into that physical business and said, hey, I have a couple questions, or I'm looking for this. Will you walk me down that aisle? Can you explain how this works? So to me, that's the area where businesses need to get better, test more things, and just be approachable, that it's not an all or nothing type situation. You don't have to get an estimate to start to try to work with us or build trust. You don't have to buy to start to have dialogue with us and understand and get some reassurances that are there. So to me, that middle ground, I tell people all the time, are you approachable? Are all of your CTAs saying buy now, or your CTAs saying we want to help you? Tell us how we can help you. Ask a question, talk to an expert, get help now. Those should be the type of CTAs that a majority of small businesses are putting in front of their customers.
So lots of ideas about, how we should be speaking to people, all the different ideas about opening these channels of communication so we can try and get these conversions. I'm wondering how, when people think about this, or when they're working with their agencies or their marketers on these opportunities, do you think they ever get scared in terms of, oh, I need to be a conversion rate optimization expert to do these things? Is it something, how formal and scientific do your processes need to be for you to focus on conversions?
I don't think that's the fear. I think a majority just don't even, if you're not in the e-commerce world, I think most of them don't even think about that, right? Like conversion rate optimization is so important in e-commerce that's where people lean towards. Again, I think just for most small businesses and even small agencies, they're looking at, for both of them, where's the revenue tied to, right? The business, the revenue is tied towards closing a lead. And so all they think about is get me the quantity of leads and things like that. And they're not really thinking about that funnel process and how to create more interactions and work them through their sales process and things like that. And the other side on the agency, where do we make our money? By managing bigger SEO campaigns and social campaigns and creating content and managing ad campaigns and things like that. So both of them are answering to their financial sources when you really start looking at it, right? This is such an easy thing to look at. If a business or an agency increases someone's spend by 10% at top of funnel, what kind of impact would that have, right? Marginal to no impact. Now, if you increase your conversion by 1%, it could have a massive impact on that business. So it's not as sexy. it's not, directly tied to revenue in how both sides look at it, but it absolutely can be the one that has the most amount of impact for that business by just getting a small 0.5% gain or 1% gain, depending upon the type of businesses, can make a massive difference in what their results are.
So I guess, because you are talking about the percentage of gains, there does need to be some sort of benchmarking. You need to be at least an element of scientific, which you should be anyway if you're making, and especially when you're talking about segmenting according to your conversion events, and you do need to have that baseline of measurement in place. And that's when you realize, I guess, that paying attention to these conversion events happening lower down the funnel is just going to bring so much more value in more ways than just like the revenue associated. It's almost like lifetime value, isn't it, for a customer? Because when you engage with them at this level, you're likely to change the nature of your relationship with them in some ways. Do you think that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, this shouldn't be any surprise to you, Claire. In the 7 years I spent strictly focused on the world of reputation and reviews with GatherUp. But even when you think of it this way, when you're a business that's easy to work with, I can ask questions right from the start. I'm impressed with you. Make it easy to talk to you. You get back to me promptly. The decision to buy with you was easy. Guess what that leads to? A 5-star experience, a 5-star review, right? That leads about a business people want to talk about and amplify that brand. So the effects of doing those things right, not are only like the sales process and the lead process and whatever else. That's making a first impression with that customer before they even spend $1 with you, that like, this is a great business. I enjoy doing business with them. I would recommend them to others, my friends, my neighbors, my coworkers. I would recommend them to the internet as a whole and write my 5-star review out there. So it absolutely has impact and effects. This is something Mike Blumenthal and I preached all the time on. The review is just a reflective of your experience. It's not because you asked in a really great way using an email or a text message at the end of the experience to follow up, where a lot of businesses fall victim to that of like, oh, this is a tool that makes this happen. We would always say, like, if it was a shit experience to begin with, it's not going to be a 5-star review just because you asked for a review at the end of it, right? So the more people can get on board with, like, right from the get-go, impressing customers or meeting their expectations, all you're doing is just ensuring when we go to ask for a review, or even if we don't do it, the customer's going to take the time to do it on their own, and that's going to massively benefit that business.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. At this point, I am going to ask you for some top tips, if you will. So we were having a chat, and I'm wondering if you can give us your sort of recipe for success in terms of some quick wins for improving conversions that someone can go out and think about in the context of, how can we do this either individually or at scale, or what should I be expecting someone to be doing for me if I'm engaging an agency on this?
Yeah, so let's just talk about like 5 quick elements that I would look at in how to do that, Claire. Number 1 is taking a look first and foremost at your website headlines, right? What are the headers, your H1s, your H2s within the website? Are they conveying trust? Are they showing how you're different? Do they have things like social proof or including numbers that people easily understand? Because these are the first things people read when they come into your website, from your GBP listing, from a search result, from a link on social media, from a friend telling them, here's the business I use, and they go and Google you and look you up. So how do you use your headlines to instantly create trust, drive them in the direction that they want to go? And what we see overall a lot of times is businesses are just too vague with those headlines, right? So they will just say something like, the best quality results. And you have no idea, could that be a plumber, a lawn business, a window company? You just don't know. So you need to make it specific to what we're great at, where we're doing it, and how long or how many people have been satisfied, a guarantee, whatever that might be. But use those website headlines to provide compelling benefits and information. After that, social proof. right? This is what's going to help anyone make a decision when they can see you have awards, you have a strong volume of reviews, and the guys over at Near Media have done this research, and they've really showed what it takes as far as users really just look at that high level amount of reviews and a strong rating in the high fours is what's going to really push that amount of trust. But then you also have things like if you're a member of your local chamber of commerce, any industry associations. So all of those types of badges and visual elements on your website are only going to make that visitor feel more comfortable. So always be looking at how can we use social proof in our headlines and our call to actions and visuals on the page so that people consciously or subconsciously can feel trust. The next one is looking at those forms that we're talking about, your contact forms, your free estimate forms, shorter forms. I always equate this to, right, that field is a brick. And every time you have another brick, you're making the wall higher for them to climb over. So I get that sales teams love a qualified lead, and here's all the things I know. But when you present a customer with 10 fields, 15, 20, 25 fields, you're just asking them to do so much on that first step, right? That first conversion step should just be getting to say, here's my name, here's how to get a hold of me, and here's what I'm interested in. I don't need your kids' names and their social security numbers and every last piece of information about you. Just get this started, and you should have a good enough sales process and communication to take it further. So look at the forms on your site. Are you capturing the bare necessity in what you need of information to get it started? Use your sales and lead process to procure that lead further. Most small businesses should not be saying, I have so many leads, I only want the great ones. No, you want all the leads, and you want to try to work all of those leads into exhaustion to get the right information, to build trust, to try to get them across the finish line. The last one, or the fourth one, authentic media. So this has long been hit upon. I think this is something that is definitely getting a lot better on the web. No more stock photos. The phone on your camera is good enough. People should see your vehicles, your staff, you interacting with customers. You can simply make 30, 60-second videos introducing yourself, the business, all those types of things. But visuals are so important, right? The web is a visual place. So it should be looking at your company, your people, your service, your product, very in tune, very in depth. I always say an easy litmus test, if you go to your Google business profile and your customers have uploaded more realistic photos of your product, service, you interacting than what you have on your website, like you are doing it wrong, right? You are losing. So put that authentic media in to build trust with them. And then the last one, of course, I'm biased on this, but I look at your website. You should be offering texting as a way to communicate with your business. This is 2024. Texting is the #1 channel that people prefer. Their text app is the most used app on their phone. So when you take a look at those things, if you're not offering that as a business communication channel, you're missing out. We still have businesses that offer a fax machine number on their website, but they're not offering texting, right? Like what a complete, mismatch of what's there. And especially when there's so many solutions now, the texting doesn't have to go to your personal number. It can go into a business app like Leadferno to manage it and doing everything else. But at a minimum, you should be testing texting on your website as a way for people to get a hold of you. So to me, those are the 5 things that I look at that everyone can, I think if you take a real look at it, you'll find places you can improve and do better and help your conversion rate improve by doing those things.
I love it. Thank you. Bring back faxing, I say. More faxing. That should happen, I think. I believe that's where it is.
Hey, here's my, I don't know, you could call this preposterous or too far-fetched, but I tell people all the time, I think email will go the way of the fax machine. Like, our email inboxes are too bogged down. They're too full of spam. This is a lot of businesses' problem with their leads. Their forms go into their email. Emails get buried, not responded to. Again, when I put out this research, Claire, the percentage of businesses that don't even respond to their lead forms is unreal. These are the same businesses saying they need more leads, and they're not responding to these things. And I think email is a massive culprit. Like, we're not connected to it enough. it just doesn't integrate the right way. It has served its purpose, and it's still great for longer form communication, but it has fallen the way of the postal service. Like, it is just not where we're communicating with friends, family, everything else. When you take all that attention away from it, it's just becoming bloated, not easy to manage, not easy to use, and people are losing leads in there like crazy. And the same for your consumer. If you reply to them, there isn't anything easier to ignore than an email. Like, I don't have to do anything with it. And when you look at something like text messaging, text messages are seen, right? They are not ignored. If someone makes a choice not to respond to it or whatever else, they can make that choice. But it's not because it's in a spam filter, buried, whatever else.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So we're nearly out of time now. Can I ask you if we have got someone that said, right, brilliant, I love it, I love all of those things. Where's the best place for them to go away and, you know, have a read about, you know, better converting and all the different stages that you also spoke about then, the different layers of interaction? Where would be a good place for them to go and consume some content?
Good news, I've organized my thoughts, maybe even better than I've conveyed today. Leadferno.com, and go visit our blog. We have research that we've conducted on all the things I've cited today. A number of articles. We're constantly putting out new content monthly. So that's a great place to take all that in. I will say I have a podcast too. Hopefully we'll have you on sometime in the future, Claire, but it's called Conversion Cast. And so we're always discussing digital marketing and what helps aid conversions, different digital marketing strategies and tactics. And I just talked to some amazing experts and bring to the table what they have to offer. So those are two great places. And me personally, I'm still a Twitter/X person. So at Aaron Weiche on Twitter or X, and you can probably stay up to date when I release new podcasts, new blog posts, all that kind of stuff.
So all that is left right now is to say a big thank you to you, Aaron, for coming along. Thank you very much.
Thank you for allowing me to just spew all of my random thoughts on conversion with you. My pleasure.
We loved it. So thank you very much to you, and a big thank you to all of our listeners and our watchers. So remember, if you're listening, if you're watching, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, so then you'll be the first to know when a new episode is released. And if you've enjoyed listening to Adventures in Local Marketing, which I very much hope that you have, please leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice, and share with a friend or listen with a friend and enjoy it together, because it makes a difference to us and helps us make even more valuable content for you. So we will see you next time on Adventures in Local Marketing, and I am looking forward to it already. Thank you very much. Bye, Aaron. Bye.